Motivation is often misunderstood. Many people wait for it, as if it were a spark that appears without warning. They wait for the perfect mood, the right environment, or a sudden surge of energy to begin their work. The Stoics would see this as a mistake. They believed that action comes first, and the feeling of motivation follows. The discipline of the mind is what sustains momentum. If you wait until you feel ready, you may wait forever. The purpose of philosophy is to free us from dependence on unstable emotions and to root our actions in clarity, reason, and strength of will. This lecture explores how Stoic principles can help you build consistent drive, even when motivation feels absent. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Understanding the nature of motivation. Motivation is unreliable because it is tied to emotion. Emotions rise and fall like waves, influenced by sleep quality, nutrition, environment, the weather, and countless small details outside of your control. If you build your actions on something so unstable, you cannot depend on consistency. The Stoics saw that anyone who waits for the perfect mood to begin will rarely progress. Their teaching was to separate action from emotion. They advised aligning each decision with reason and virtue, which act as a compass even when internal feelings are unsettled. This shift allows you to function with steadiness rather than being dragged from one extreme to another by passing states of mind. Marcus Aurelius admitted that he struggled with the mornings. He often wrote to himself about the temptation to remain under the covers, about how appealing comfort can be in contrast to duty. Yet he reminded himself that his role was to live as a human being created for action, not for idleness. His reasoning was that his purpose was to fulfill his natural tasks, contribute to society, and honor the order of the world. These reminders were not meant to make him feel inspired. They were meant to guide him into movement. His example shows that the right mindset accepts difficulty and begins despite resistance. When you act on principle, energy often follows the first step. Rising from bed signals to your body that the day has begun, and with movement comes warmth and alertness. Beginning to write brings structure to scattered thoughts, and the process itself generates new ideas that were hidden in hesitation. Taking the first steps in physical work or study clears away the fog of reluctance and replaces it with rhythm. Action works as a key that unlocks the flow of effort, while delay keeps the door closed. Waiting for energy leaves you motionless, but starting based on reason brings body and mind into alignment. This is why the Stoics urged their students to begin tasks immediately, trusting that clarity and energy would follow effort. Motivation becomes a product of doing, not the fuel to begin doing. The lesson is that relying on motivation as a spark is unstable. Anchoring yourself in duty and reason ensures that you can continue even when desire is absent. Duty forms a stable ground on which to stand. Each deliberate step creates a pattern of consistency that builds confidence. You learn through repetition that progress does not depend on enthusiasm, but on commitment. This steadiness outlasts bursts of inspiration and produces strength that endures fatigue, doubt, and distraction. Each action you take confirms to yourself that you can move forward without waiting for moods to shift. Motivation that is based only on emotional highs often collapses when pressure rises or when conditions are unfavorable. Duty does not shift with moods or circumstances. By anchoring yourself in principle, you know what must be done and act upon it without bargaining. This approach removes uncertainty because your actions no longer depend on how you feel at any given moment. Repetition of this behavior transforms duty into habit, and habit provides strength that carries you through moments when energy is low. Each completed action strengthens the belief that you are capable of working without waiting for ideal conditions. This steady pattern builds a foundation that is harder to break than enthusiasm alone. Consistency also develops resilience. By facing tasks regularly without requiring inspiration, you teach yourself that you can function in difficulty just as you do in comfort. The ability to move forward under strain or fatigue gives a sense of self-trust that cannot be built in easier times. The Stoics believed that such training of the will produced a freedom from dependence on emotions and gave true independence of mind. When you live by duty, you gain the strength to persist without asking for reassurance from feelings. That strength makes long-term progress possible in any area of life. Begin each day with a clearly defined action that requires no debate. Rising from bed at a set time, drinking water immediately, stretching for a few minutes, or writing a single line in a notebook can establish momentum. These actions work as anchors to ground you in the present and set the direction of the day. They serve as physical cues to remind you that your life is guided by intention, not hesitation. Through repetition, these habits reduce the weight of resistance because they become automatic responses to the start of the day. You begin with order, and that order shapes your approach to everything that follows. By repeating these small actions, you build evidence for yourself that reason directs behavior even when feelings fluctuate. This proof removes doubt and shows you that motivation is not a requirement for progress. Each day you confirm through behavior that discipline outlasts enthusiasm and that commitment produces momentum more reliable than emotion. In this way, duty, repetition, and principle provide the stability needed to act consistently regardless of shifting moods. Chapter 2. Discipline over desire. The Stoics taught that desire is fleeting, while discipline is steady. Desire may bring a temporary push toward action when conditions feel light and appealing, but it often disappears as soon as effort feels heavy or resistance increases. Discipline is different. It is the established habit of doing what aligns with your values and duties, regardless of mood or circumstance. When discipline becomes part of your character, it acts as a constant guide, ensuring that action does not depend on the ups and downs of emotional states. Epictetus reminded his students that true freedom does not come from indulging every impulse, but from mastery of the self. If you depend on pleasure for motivation, your actions remain fragile and uncertain. Pleasure shifts with circumstances, and when it disappears, your drive often disappears with it. Discipline builds reliability because it is not tied to passing feelings. It gives you a framework that directs behavior regardless of comfort. The structure of habits makes action automatic, removing the need to bargain with yourself each time. When you decide in advance what must be done and follow through, you anchor your choices in reason. This strengthens the mind and allows effort to come from commitment rather than desire. Consistency through discipline also builds inner stability. When you practice acting without waiting for inspiration, you prove to yourself that progress can continue in both favorable and unfavorable conditions. Stress, fatigue, or distraction become less powerful because you no longer allow them to dictate your choices. Each completed act of discipline reinforces your ability to remain steady, training your mind to operate with clarity, even under pressure. This stability prevents you from being controlled by external influences and secures your independence of mind. Commitment to discipline creates resilience. When you act without seeking comfort, you build the capacity to keep going when conditions are difficult. The Stoics described this as training the soul, since it develops inner character. Each repeated act of discipline strengthens your ability to meet challenges of any size. The more you practice, the more you trust yourself to endure without hesitation. This trust becomes a foundation that supports growth and allows you to continue in both ease and strain. Resilience is built in daily effort, and each test of discipline prepares you for larger trials. Resilience also creates stability of mind. By continuing even when you feel pressure or fatigue, you establish proof that you can function under conditions that would normally stop you. This proof shapes your confidence. You know through experience that discomfort does not prevent progress. Each time you act, you reinforce the belief that obstacles can be carried rather than avoided. This training strengthens patience, sharpens focus, and allows you to persist when others may quit. The Stoics valued this as one of the highest forms of strength because it frees you from dependence on external ease. A practical way to cultivate this is to choose a single task that matters to your development and complete it at the same time each day. Reading a passage, writing a short entry, physical training, or a professional duty can serve as this anchor. The value is in the repetition. Performing the task at a fixed time conditions the mind to expect action without debate. This removes hesitation and lowers resistance. Like an athlete who follows the same routine each day, you build endurance through repeated exposure. Each time the task is completed, the habit grows stronger, and the difficulty of beginning becomes weaker. This steady practice begins to give shape to your life. Each repeated act of discipline strengthens order, reduces distraction, and expands your ability to endure hardship. It demonstrates in direct experience that progress is built on commitment rather than desire. By keeping to your practice, you prepare yourself to handle both comfort and adversity with the same steadiness. This aligns with the Stoic principle of stability in action, which views consistency as the mark of strength. Through discipline, your life gains reliability, and that reliability becomes the ground for lasting growth. Chapter 3: The Role of Purpose. Motivation weakens when you lack clarity about why you act. Purpose provides direction, strength, and a framework that sustains effort. Without a guiding aim, actions become scattered and difficult to maintain. The Stoics believed that the highest purpose was to live in harmony with reason, virtue, and nature. Within this central aim, each person holds roles that require attention. As a parent, a worker, a citizen, a student, or a friend. These roles give form to daily responsibilities and remind you of the larger order of which you are a part. Marcus Aurelius returned often to the idea of duty. In his notes, he reminded himself that his responsibility was to serve the common good, and that personal discomfort mattered little compared to the responsibilities of his position. By framing his struggles against a greater purpose, he was able to rise above fatigue and doubt. His reflections show that when you see yourself as part of a larger order, your effort is lifted beyond hesitation. Purpose transforms each action from an isolated task into a contribution to a greater whole. Epictetus also taught that purpose gives strength because it provides a reason to endure hardship. He told his students to understand their role in life as if they were actors in a play written by a higher order. The part may be difficult, but the role is to play it well. With this mindset, discomfort becomes less threatening because it serves the fulfillment of a greater responsibility. Clarity of purpose changes how you interpret challenge, not as something to escape, but as an opportunity to act in alignment with your role. Practical reflection strengthens this clarity. Write down the main roles you hold in life, and then list the principles you wish to embody in each. For example, as a worker, you may choose diligence and reliability. As a parent, patience and guidance. As a friend, honesty and loyalty. When motivation is low, return to these roles and principles. Ask yourself what specific action today reflects the kind of person you wish to be in each area. This practice shifts your focus from immediate comfort to long-term meaning. Clarity of purpose transforms ordinary effort into meaningful practice. Even simple tasks, when tied to principles, gain weight and significance. By reconnecting with your roles and values each day, you ensure that your effort is not wasted or scattered. You act with intention, and that intention sustains momentum when enthusiasm fades. Purpose is the compass that allows you to remain steady, and with it, your motivation gains depth that emotion alone cannot provide. Purpose also acts as protection against distraction. When you are clear about what matters most, you reduce the temptation to chase every passing interest or impulse. This includes common and harmful distractions such as frequent alcohol use, recreational drug use, or viewing explicit material for short-term stimulation. These activities give brief pleasure but damage focus and weaken the brain's ability to sustain attention, leaving less energy for meaningful work. Purpose provides a filter against these impulses by keeping you anchored to values and long-term goals. When you hold your direction clearly in mind, your energy becomes directed toward actions that reinforce growth. This prevents your time and focus from being consumed by habits that erode strength. Each day lived with purpose strengthens order in your life and builds consistency. That order supports motivation because it assures you that your effort serves something enduring rather than fleeting satisfaction. The Stoics recognized that life without purpose often feels heavy and scattered. Work that has no deeper meaning quickly loses energy. Tasks performed only for comfort or appearance drain strength. When those same actions are tied to values, they become fuel for growth. Marcus Aurelius recorded in his writings that he was made for action and for service. He wrote that his personal discomforts were small compared to his responsibility to the larger whole. By linking his daily struggles to his role as emperor and servant of the common good, he turned each task into practice in virtue. This shows that meaning transforms the experience of work, even when it feels difficult, and prevents the emptiness that comes from aimless activity. Epictetus also instructed his students to remember that they were actors in a greater play. The role may not always be easy, but it is theirs to fulfill with dignity. This teaching reinforces that purpose allows hardship to be interpreted as part of a larger order. Pain or fatigue is not meaningless when it helps you play your part well. When you see yourself within a greater structure, every challenge becomes material for practice. This way of thinking keeps your motivation steady, even in moments of strain. A useful exercise is to review your roles each morning. Write them down in clear terms. Then identify one action in each role that expresses your chosen principles. For example, as a worker, you may commit to finishing an important task with diligence. As a parent, you may decide to listen with patience to your child. As a friend, you may choose to offer support with honesty. These small but deliberate actions give shape to your day and align you with your values. When you follow through, you reinforce the connection between principle and practice. This strengthens confidence and builds momentum that carries you into larger responsibilities. Through clarity of purpose, ordinary effort gains significance. Each action becomes part of a larger pattern of life guided by principle. When you know what you stand for and what roles you must fulfill, the smallest task can serve as practice in virtue. This transforms your daily work into a form of training that develops strength of character. The act of showing patience in conversation or finishing a task with diligence no longer feels minor because it expresses your values in action. This alignment also reduces hesitation. When you are clear about your guiding principles, you do not waste energy debating whether to act. The decision has already been made by your commitment to your values. Discipline grows stronger because it no longer competes with indecision. Instead of asking if you feel like working, you act according to the standards you have already chosen. This clarity makes progress smoother and more consistent. Clarity of purpose also strengthens endurance. When emotional drive is weak, you can still move forward by remembering why your work matters. You remind yourself that your actions are not random, but connected to your roles as a parent, worker, citizen, or friend. This connection gives weight to your effort and allows you to continue when desire is low. By drawing strength from meaning rather than mood, you create consistency that cannot be broken by fatigue or distraction. With this consistency, even periods of discouragement lose their power, since you have built the habit of acting for reasons larger than temporary feelings. Each completed duty, however small, strengthens the link between principle and practice, reinforcing your ability to persist. Over weeks and months, this approach creates a steady path of progress that builds confidence and reduces doubt. Purpose ensures that motivation is rooted in meaning, giving it durability and steadiness. It becomes a compass that guides you through both small duties and larger challenges. Each task, when connected to your values, reinforces the direction of your life. In this way, purpose turns your work into a continuous expression of who you are and who you are becoming. It gives your motivation depth, stability, and a foundation strong enough to support you through change and adversity. This foundation also protects against distraction, because you know that each act has significance within the larger pattern of your life. With clarity of purpose, discipline grows naturally, and your capacity to endure is strengthened by the knowledge that you are moving toward a meaningful end. Chapter 4. Action creates energy. A common mistake is waiting for energy before acting. The Stoics understood that energy often follows action. Once you begin, the body adjusts and the mind sharpens. Hesitation, on the other hand, drains vitality. The longer you delay, the heavier the task feels. Delays multiply resistance by allowing doubt and excuses to grow. When you act quickly, you prevent this build-up and create a clear path forward. The first step does not need to be large. Its power comes from the way it shifts your momentum from stillness to movement. Seneca advised that delay feeds fear and that the cure is immediate engagement. Fear strengthens when you allow your mind to circle around possibilities instead of beginning. The mind magnifies obstacles when it remains still. Immediate engagement interrupts this cycle and forces attention onto the present task. Even a single step toward the work in front of you breaks inertia and begins to replace anxiety with confidence. This principle applies equally to simple duties, such as organizing a desk or replying to a single message, and to larger responsibilities like beginning an assignment or addressing a personal challenge. Each step confirms to your mind that you are capable of progress and that movement is within reach. The practice of immediate engagement builds momentum. Each time you act without delay, you reinforce the link between hesitation and beginning. This repeated connection conditions your mind to use resistance as a signal to act. The hesitation becomes a reminder, not a barrier. In this way, discipline strengthens through action rather than thought alone. You learn through repeated practice that readiness is not required to move forward, only a decision to take the first step. By acting quickly, you prevent excuses from developing and keep the weight of the task from increasing. When this practice becomes consistent, it develops into a lasting habit. Your natural response to resistance shifts away from pause or retreat and moves toward immediate action. Instead of getting caught in thought or seeking distraction, you step forward into the task. This change alters how you approach daily responsibilities. Tasks that once felt overwhelming become manageable because your mind has been trained to begin without hesitation. The automatic response to resistance removes much of the wasted time spent in indecision, giving your routine greater stability and reliability. Each repetition strengthens the pattern, making it more natural to move than to stop. As this habit grows, it spreads into different areas of life. Beginning quickly with small duties builds the same response for larger challenges. Writing one line prepares you for longer work sessions. Cleaning one corner of a space leads to maintaining an orderly environment. Sending one important message helps you handle greater communication tasks. Each instance reinforces the association between resistance and forward motion. In this way, even minor acts carry weight because they strengthen the larger structure of discipline. Confidence expands through this process. Every time you act quickly, you prove to yourself that hesitation has no control. Each small victory builds evidence that you can overcome resistance and accomplish what needs to be done. This repeated proof accumulates and shapes a stronger sense of trust in your own reliability. As the habit deepens, it reduces the space for doubt and makes consistent action more likely. A practical way to apply this principle is to commit to beginning within 1 minute whenever you notice resistance. The task does not need to be completed in that moment, only started. Write a single sentence if you resist writing. Send one important message if you resist communication. Begin one section of a larger responsibility if the whole seems overwhelming. These actions appear small, yet their impact is significant. They dismantle excuses, trigger focus, and break larger efforts into steps that can be carried out steadily. By beginning quickly and practicing repeatedly, you demonstrate that progress is always available and that the choice to act is within your control. Chapter 5: Endurance and Long-Term Strength. Motivation is often thought of as a quick spark, but the Stoics saw endurance as the greater strength. Life demands sustained effort across many years, not brief enthusiasm that fades with changing moods. Endurance allows a person to continue working steadily, even when conditions are harsh or discouraging. To develop this strength, you must train the mind to accept discomfort without complaint and to recognize that hardship is part of the human condition. Epictetus taught that each hardship is material for training. When difficulty appears, the response you choose determines whether you weaken or grow stronger. By facing obstacles with discipline, they become opportunities to cultivate patience, courage, and focus. Every challenge that is carried with steadiness adds to your ability to endure. This endurance produces a deeper motivation because it builds trust in your own capacity to withstand pressure without stepping back. Even when enthusiasm fades, endurance keeps you moving forward and provides stability until clarity returns. Seneca wrote that endurance is a form of wisdom. He described adversity as a test that reveals the strength of character. Complaints and avoidance weaken the mind, while effort through hardship creates balance and resilience. When you accept trials as part of a training process, you see them not as interruptions, but as necessary conditions for growth. Each period of strain can be reframed as a lesson that strengthens independence and self-control. Endurance supports consistency by allowing you to remain steady across long periods. It enables progress even during fatigue, delays, or discouragement. Without it, progress breaks under pressure. With it, you maintain effort and trust that each step, however small, contributes to your development. This ability gives you resilience against uncertainty because you are no longer dependent on emotional highs. You move forward through the habit of steady effort rather than through temporary excitement. Endurance is also connected to perspective. When you recognize that life includes hardship as part of its natural design, you are less likely to view it as unfair. This understanding reduces frustration and prepares the mind to accept difficulty as part of the order of things. The Stoics encouraged reflection on this truth daily to reinforce resilience. By expecting challenges, you are less shaken when they appear. When facing difficulty, remind yourself that hardship is part of your training. Repeat to yourself, "This is practice." Viewing obstacles in this way transforms resistance into acceptance and allows you to continue. You can also strengthen endurance deliberately through exercises that test your tolerance. Examples include finishing work while tired, maintaining your focus in noisy or uncomfortable environments, exercising in the cold, or completing duties that you would prefer to avoid. These deliberate tests prepare you for larger challenges by teaching your mind and body to continue under strain. Each repetition makes endurance more natural and reduces dependence on motivation. With practice, you come to see difficulty not as a barrier, but as a tool that sharpens your capacity to act with steadiness, adds to your ability to endure. This endurance produces a deeper motivation because it builds trust in your own capacity to withstand pressure without stepping back. Even when enthusiasm fades, endurance keeps you moving forward and provides stability until clarity returns. Seneca wrote that endurance is a form of wisdom. He explained that adversity serves as a test that uncovers the true quality of character. Complaints and avoidance diminish inner strength because they teach the mind to resist reality rather than to work within it. By choosing effort instead of retreat, the mind grows balanced and resilient. This shift turns adversity into a teacher. Hardship no longer appears as an unfair interruption, but as a natural part of life that offers lessons in patience, discipline, and courage. When you accept trials as part of a training process, you begin to expect them and prepare for them. Each period of strain can then be reframed as practice that strengthens independence and self-control. Endurance requires seeing value in difficulty rather than waiting for comfort. Seneca's writings urge the student to meet challenges without complaint, to carry them as part of the path, and to recognize that the mind is made stronger through exposure to strain. With this approach, hardship contributes to stability instead of creating disorder. Endurance also supports long-term consistency. It allows you to keep advancing toward your goals, even when conditions are tiring or progress is slow. Without this capacity, work often breaks down when stress increases. With endurance, you continue steadily, trusting that every effort contributes to your development. This steadiness brings resilience against uncertainty, since your actions no longer depend on emotional highs or sudden bursts of motivation. The habit of persistence replaces the need for inspiration. Practical strategies. To strengthen endurance, deliberately place yourself in situations that require patience and control. Finish a task when you are already tired. Maintain your focus in noisy environments. Exercise in the cold or in less comfortable conditions. Complete duties that you would normally avoid. These deliberate tests expand your tolerance for strain and prepare you for larger challenges. By repeating them, you reduce dependence on ideal circumstances and prove to yourself that progress is possible even under stress. Each repetition strengthens your ability to act with steadiness, turning endurance into a reliable part of your character. Chapter 6. The Power of Routine. The Stoics emphasized the value of order and rhythm in daily life. Routine removes the burden of constant decision-making and creates stability for the mind. When your day has structure, you conserve energy for the tasks themselves rather than wasting it on deciding when or how to act. This stability reduces hesitation and builds confidence in your ability to follow through. A life built on routine allows reason to guide action instead of mood or impulse. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to begin each day with clarity, acknowledging the duties before him without delay. He recognized that distractions and frustrations would appear as part of daily life, yet by anchoring himself to a rhythm of practice, he could face them with steadiness. His approach was not about creating rigidity, but about building a reliable framework that allowed discipline to thrive. By starting the day with intention, he strengthened his ability to act with purpose instead of being carried away by impulse or external pressures. Routine for him was a way to bring order to the mind before the day's challenges could unsettle it. Routine also makes life more manageable by reducing the mental effort spent on decisions. Each small choice throughout the day carries a cost in energy. By fixing certain practices into a routine, you conserve that energy for meaningful tasks. A consistent rhythm builds predictability, which in turn creates confidence. You begin to trust that you will act regardless of distractions, because the structure itself guides your behavior. This steadiness makes it easier to maintain discipline across both favorable and unfavorable circumstances. Practical structure begins with the morning. Establish a routine that includes physical movement to wake the body, reflection to prepare the mind, and one productive task to establish momentum. Physical activity signals readiness, reflection shapes direction, and completing a task confirms progress. Each of these anchors prepares you to meet the day with clarity and confidence. Evenings also play a vital role. Closing the day with a period of review strengthens awareness and provides closure. Write down what was done well, where mistakes were made, and what can be improved tomorrow. This practice forms a cycle of beginning and completion, where each day teaches you how to refine the next. Over repeated practice, this rhythm builds momentum that supports effort when motivation is absent. The mind comes to expect order, and that expectation itself becomes a source of stability. Chapter 7. Detachment from results. The Stoics taught that effort belongs to us, while results often do not. Outcomes are influenced by external forces such as circumstance, timing, and the actions of others. When focus is placed entirely on results, frustration grows because many elements remain outside of control. By shifting attention to effort, you create a stable foundation that allows progress to continue regardless of outcome. This perspective keeps motivation intact even when expectations are not met, because success is measured by the quality of action rather than the final result. Epictetus consistently reminded his students that only what lies within the sphere of their control truly belongs to them. He explained that the mind suffers when it attaches itself to outcomes that are subject to chance, circumstance, or the will of others. Disappointment and anger grow when expectations are placed on what cannot be guaranteed. To avoid this, he urged his students to direct attention toward intention, preparation, and disciplined effort, areas that remain under personal authority. Recognition, reward, or external success often depend on many factors beyond influence, but the quality of one's own actions can always be chosen. By grounding energy in what you can influence, you establish stability in your work and reduce the turmoil that comes with fluctuating results. Each day becomes an opportunity to strengthen character through deliberate action. When you measure progress by effort rather than reward, you establish a sense of achievement rooted in reliability and consistency. This approach develops a form of inner stability that does not shift with praise or criticism. By making effort the standard, you learn to evaluate yourself by discipline and integrity. This reduces dependence on comparison with others and keeps your focus on your own growth. Freedom is created because your sense of worth no longer rises and falls with external approval or unpredictable events. Instead, it rests on the assurance that you acted in alignment with your principles. This perspective also protects you against discouragement when results are delayed or uncertain. Accepting that outcomes vary trains the mind to remain balanced through success and failure alike. By treating each task as practice in discipline, you reinforce the habit of persistence. Over time, trust grows in your own ability to remain steady regardless of circumstances. This trust becomes confidence, not in what the world will provide, but in your ability to continue acting with clarity. The act of following through itself becomes a source of motivation, which is more dependable than chasing external recognition. To apply this principle more fully, create clear standards for effort before beginning any task. Decide in advance how long you will work, how much focus you will commit, and what part of the task you will complete. Afterward, review your performance by these standards alone. For example, you may choose to read with concentration for 30 minutes, exercise with consistency for a set period, or write without distraction for a defined block of time. Success is measured by whether you honored your effort, not by the outcome. Expand this practice into different areas of life. In relationships, commit to listening attentively and responding with honesty, even in moments of disagreement. Make the effort to remain patient and to give your full presence rather than reacting with haste. At work, commit to delivering tasks with diligence and reliability, maintaining quality regardless of external recognition or reward. This steady contribution builds trust with others and reinforces self-respect. In personal development, commit to consistent practices such as journaling, reflection, or study, guided by the effort you promised yourself rather than by external measures of success. Extend this further into health by committing to daily movement, balanced eating, and proper rest as acts of effort toward your well-being. In community life, commit to acting with fairness and offering support where you can, even when unnoticed. Each repetition across these areas strengthens the habit of effort-centered living and builds a character that is reliable in many roles. This way of living reduces dependence on circumstances you cannot command and anchors your motivation in discipline, giving you steady ground to act upon each day with clarity and consistency. Chapter 8. The Discipline of the Present Moment. Motivation weakens when attention drifts too far into the past or the future. The Stoics advised training the mind to remain in the present, where action takes place. Worrying about the future or regretting the past consumes energy while producing no progress. By focusing on what is immediately before you, tasks feel lighter and more achievable. Remaining in the present also reduces the burden of carrying problems that do not yet exist, and it keeps the mind centered on what can actually be influenced. Marcus Aurelius instructed himself to confine each action to the present. He reminded himself that life is lived one step at a time, and that allowing the mind to scatter into future worries only multiplies weight unnecessarily. By committing fully to the current task, he found steadiness even under pressure. This discipline of focusing on the present step transforms overwhelming challenges into a series of manageable actions, each completed in its own moment. Practical application begins with narrowing focus. When resistance appears, reduce your attention to the smallest possible action. If a task feels large, break it into its simplest unit and begin with that. Speak to yourself clearly, only this step. By directing attention back to the immediate task, you bring the mind into alignment with the present. This practice restores clarity, makes progress attainable, and creates momentum through consistent action. You can expand this discipline into every area of life. In work, direct attention to the specific responsibility before you, rather than allowing your mind to scatter across the entire list of duties. This approach reduces anxiety and makes completion more manageable, since energy is devoted to what can actually be accomplished in the present. In relationships, discipline yourself to listen fully to the person speaking and to respond with honesty and patience. This practice builds trust and strengthens connections because it shows genuine respect for the other person's perspective. Extend this further by setting the intention to avoid interrupting, to clarify before reacting, and to communicate with calm steadiness. Each of these habits transforms ordinary conversations into opportunities for discipline and integrity. In personal growth, direct attention to today's practice rather than being weighed down by the thought of how far you still have to go. Journaling, meditation, or study become valuable not for immediate mastery, but for the consistency with which you approach them. When you commit fully to a single practice each day, you create gradual development that builds character. In health, focus on the workout or meal before you instead of being consumed by long-term goals. By giving full effort to present choices, progress becomes a natural result of repeated action. In community life, apply this discipline by giving sincere presence when helping others, offering fairness, and following through on promises, regardless of recognition. Each of these examples reinforces the principle that steady progress arises from giving full effort to the present action. When you learn to discipline your attention in this way, you begin to see that the present moment always holds enough for meaningful action. Each choice, each small effort, contributes to a larger pattern of growth that cannot be shaped by looking backward or by becoming lost in speculation about the future. The future will still be influenced, but its shape depends on the quality and integrity of the actions taken today. The past, no matter how often it is revisited, remains fixed and unchangeable, serving only as a record and a lesson, not as a burden to carry. By giving your full attention to the present, you avoid scattering energy into places where it produces no progress. The present becomes the clear ground where discipline, clarity, and progress meet. Training the mind to remain here ensures that your energy is invested with precision, where it is most effective and where it creates real impact on both growth and resilience. It strengthens the habit of steadiness, allowing you to meet uncertainty with calm and to build momentum through repeated, focused action. In this way, the present moment becomes not only a point of focus, but a continuous practice of discipline that expands your capacity for endurance and consistent improvement. Chapter 9. Enduring Discomfort. The Stoics believed that comfort often weakens resolve, while discomfort strengthens it. Choosing to endure discomfort prepares the mind and body for greater challenges. When you voluntarily practice discomfort, you remove fear of it and expand your capacity to remain steady when it appears without choice. By treating discomfort as training rather than punishment, you transform it into a tool for discipline. Seneca advised occasional hardship as practice, such as eating simple food, wearing plain clothing, or living with less than usual. His purpose was not to reject comfort entirely, but to train the mind not to depend on it. He reminded his students to ask themselves during these exercises whether this was what they had feared. By seeing that hardship was tolerable, the mind learned to release unnecessary fear. In this way, resilience was built, and the imagination lost much of its power to intimidate. Discomfort became familiar, and familiarity bred steadiness instead of panic. This training prevented hesitation when life presented difficulty outside of personal control. Other Stoics also embraced similar practices. Musonius Rufus recommended simple living and argued that luxury distracts from virtue. He taught that a person trained in plain habits becomes more prepared to face misfortune with calm. Marcus Aurelius, while emperor, often reminded himself in his writings that hardship was part of nature and that by accepting it without complaint, he became stronger in spirit. Each of these examples shows that the deliberate use of discomfort was central to Stoic preparation for life's uncertainties. Practical application requires intentionally adding small hardships into your routine. Take cold showers to strengthen tolerance for physical unease. Walk instead of driving when possible to build patience and endurance. Reduce unnecessary luxuries so that comfort does not become dependency. Occasionally fast or eat plain meals to remind yourself that you can function with less. Sleep without complete ease at times to sharpen adaptability. Work in silence without constant entertainment to strengthen attention. Each of these exercises teaches that comfort is not required for progress or peace of mind. They also expand the limits of what you can face without anxiety. Extend this principle into modern challenges as well. Spend time away from digital distractions to practice being content with stillness. Engage in demanding physical training to test both body and will. Accept moments of boredom as opportunities for focus rather than rushing to fill them. Volunteer for tasks that are inconvenient yet beneficial to others, strengthening the link between endurance and service. These practices cultivate inner toughness, making difficulties appear less intimidating when they arise on their own. By adopting voluntary discomfort in small doses, you develop a steady confidence that life cannot easily shake. This practice works as a form of gradual conditioning that strengthens both body and mind. The purpose is not punishment, but preparation, a way of building resistance before hardship arrives unexpectedly. Each time you willingly place yourself in situations of mild difficulty, you are rehearsing for greater tests. The more you face hardship deliberately, the less you fear it, because experience proves that fear often exaggerates difficulty. Every exercise becomes a rehearsal for greater challenges, and each rehearsal strengthens resolve, patience, and adaptability. By repeating these practices, you also reduce the tendency to avoid discomfort, and instead approach it with steadiness. This way of living confirms the Stoic belief that endurance is built through consistent training, and that strength grows most reliably through chosen effort in the face of discomfort. It reinforces the truth that resilience is not granted suddenly, but cultivated through deliberate exposure, reflection, and repeated practice in controlled trials of hardship. Chapter 10. Building Inner Strength Through Reflection. The Stoics practice daily reflection to strengthen their character. Reflection allows you to examine your actions, measure them against your principles, and correct your course. Without reflection, habits drift and actions lose alignment with values. With it, you sharpen self-awareness and ensure that discipline remains consistent. Reflection trains the mind to become its own guide, capable of recognizing both strengths and weaknesses and correcting direction before errors grow into ingrained habits. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively in his journals, not to publish, but to train his mind. His writing was a dialogue with himself, reminding him of principles and correcting errors. He recorded daily reminders about the brevity of life, the value of patience, and the duty to act with justice. This process of writing kept his thoughts disciplined and prevented them from scattering under the weight of responsibility. His journal entries reveal a man constantly refining his inner world so that his outward actions remained aligned with reason. Reflection, in this sense, was not passive thinking but active training, strengthening his resolve and providing clarity in difficult times. Reflection becomes a tool that renews purpose, preserves direction, and prevents complacency. Other Stoics, such as Seneca, also emphasized the importance of reflection. Seneca described ending each evening by questioning himself about what he had done well, where he had fallen short, and what could be improved. He treated this exercise as a form of accountability, ensuring that no mistake was ignored and no progress went unrecognized. Musonius Rufus spoke about the importance of self-examination as a way to purify the mind and live closer to virtue. These practices show that reflection was not occasional advice, but a consistent discipline, applied daily to ensure growth. Set aside time each evening to review the day. Ask yourself what actions aligned with your principles and what must be improved tomorrow. Write a brief note of both progress and correction, keeping the record honest and free from excuses. Identify moments of impatience, distraction, or neglect, and match them with steps for correction. Acknowledge moments of clarity, discipline, or kindness, and affirm the value of repeating them. This process creates awareness that guides your choices for the next day. Practical application can include keeping a journal, speaking reflections aloud, or reviewing silently in thought. Choose a method that keeps you engaged and consistent. Begin with 3 questions. What did I do well? Where did I fail to live up to my principles? What must I do tomorrow to improve? These questions encourage balance between encouragement and correction. Avoid vague answers and aim for clarity, writing down specifics to make accountability firm. Reflection also strengthens long-term resilience. By reviewing actions regularly, you catch errors early before they harden into habits. You also build a clear record of progress, which becomes encouragement in difficult periods. Looking back on consistent notes of effort shows you that growth is real and ongoing, even if results appear slowly. The practice becomes a form of guidance, reminding you of your values when emotions or distractions attempt to pull you away from them. You can extend reflection beyond the evening into other parts of the day. Brief pauses at midday to ask yourself whether your actions are aligned with your intentions can redirect you before a mistake deepens. Reflection after important conversations or tasks can sharpen awareness about how you carried yourself and how you might improve. These shorter practices reinforce the habit of living deliberately rather than drifting unconsciously. This discipline of reflection anchors your growth in self-awareness. It prevents stagnation, sharpens character, and makes each day a lesson. By practicing consistent review, you train the mind to correct itself, to celebrate progress without arrogance, and to face failure without despair. Reflection ensures that each day contributes to building strength, clarity, and consistency. It serves as a safeguard against drifting away from your principles and as a reminder that your life is directed by deliberate choice rather than by accident. Reflection deepens awareness of your inner state, making you more attentive to impulses and more deliberate in your responses. It transforms mistakes into material for learning instead of sources of regret. By making reflection a daily practice, you also build discipline in thought. Each evening becomes an opportunity to examine your motives, your speech, and your actions, which develops sharper judgment. This process helps you recognize patterns of weakness and address them before they become ingrained. It also strengthens confidence by confirming progress and reinforcing your capacity to live according to your values. Reflection creates a bridge between thought and action, ensuring that principles do not remain abstract, but are tested in the reality of daily life. Consistent reflection also develops humility. By confronting your shortcomings directly, you reduce pride and remain grounded in the work of self-improvement. At the same time, by recording progress honestly, you acknowledge growth without exaggeration. This balance keeps your pursuit of virtue steady and realistic. It creates stability that is not shaken by temporary failure or by fleeting praise. In this way, reflection becomes one of the most reliable tools for inner growth, binding thought and action together through continual correction, renewal, and commitment to a life guided by reason and virtue.